Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, where we provide world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Food and Our Emotions. We're going to be looking at the pros and cons of the Atkins diet. Who's going to guide us through this journey? It's Mr. Red.olaughlin, of course, longevity strategist. He's also an award-winning author. He's a publisher. He is someone who you want to have in your circle because he truly leads his life with his heart. Let's welcome my dear friend, Mr. Red.olaughlin. Hello.
Howdy, Dr. JACALYN. Just another wonderful day here in paradise.
Absolutely.
And I noticed you didn't say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our audience all the way around the world. So I will say that. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our worldwide audience. And it truly is a worldwide audience.
Yes, it is. And by the way, I don't know if you saw, I just posted today, but we crossed over 600,000 views this year so far. We were just at 500,000 last month, I think. So thank you to you and all of our team members, to our guests, our sponsors, and to our loyal fans across the world.
Yeah, very much so. The interesting thing about diets is that diets we tend to think are temporary. They're not part of our life because it's not the way we want to live. We'll go on a diet to lose a few pounds and then we come right back to whatever put us overweight. Would you not agree, Dr. JACALYN?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so many of us have been on diets, off on, yo-yo, here, there, year, back and forth. And some of them work, some of them don't. Some of them that used to work don't work as well. And part of what happens in our brain is that if we fail at something, our subconscious mind doesn't like that. And so we fail with a diet, it's going to sabotage us. So instead of sticking strictly to the diet, that little bit of ice cream, vegan, piece of pie, candy bar, whatever it may happen to be, we just get off of the diet just a little bit. And that little bit becomes incremental. Next time it's 2 bites instead of 1. But there are some diets, depending on what they are, it can become a lifestyle. And the lifestyle is, regardless of whatever, that's just the way you think, it's the way you act, it's the way you eat. And whether it be the Mediterranean or some other kind of ketogenic or whatever, it's the way it is. And back in the 90s, I had an opportunity to go back on active duty. I got an invitation very, very early in my life to Vietnam back in the late 60s, early 70s. I went on active duty, was there for a few years. I did get to go to Vietnam, went in the reserves for 20 years. And then things happened where I could go actually back on active duty for a while. And I spent a couple of years in New York City, a couple of years in Bay Area, California, my last couple of years in Stuttgart, Germany. But the Stuttgart, Germany function was in support of Bosnia, and I was down there a few times. But the whole thing was that somewhere in the mid to late 90s, Atkins kind of had a major resurgence. I looked at it and says, that's kind of neat. So I bought a book and read about it. Actually bought another book. And in reality, I bought 5 books and I read about it. And I said, this, I didn't know anything about ketogenic back then. I said, this sounds too easy. I mean, how can it get any better? Double cheeseburgers without the bun, ham and cheese omelets. I mean, just anything that I really and truly love to eat, I could eat on Atkins, and it didn't make any difference. And so I took a look at what were the potential hazards. They said, well, there might be a little cardiovascular issue. Didn't run in the family, didn't think it was an issue. They said you could have some kidney issues because you're eating too many proteins. I said, well, yeah, let me just try it. So I went on the diet, and this is probably about 1995, 96 time frame ish. 95, let's just pick that for a round number. And it was amazing because I was a hefty guy, probably 40 pounds overweight, 30 pounds overweight. Uh, and I noticed right away I could stick to this one easy. It made no problem, no difference at all. Everything I wanted was easy. I could order at a hamburger stand, I could order off a restaurant. It didn't matter because I could pick and choose what I wanted, which was basically fats and proteins, no carbs. And I said, that's pretty good. So the whole diet itself is focused on the fact that you're transitioning from a normal, let's just call it standard American diet that's fairly high in carbohydrates, not so much in some of the other stuff, but you're cutting carbohydrates out. So most people think of Atkins as a low carb diet. We don't quite think of it as a ketogenic diet, but in reality, they're very, very same. But that low carb diet does something very specific to our body. That blood glucose that we normally get from eating carbohydrates disappears because we're not, or we're getting so few carbohydrates that the amount in our bloodstream disappears quickly. So as I mentioned on some other kind of diets, if you don't even change anything but the time frequency between your diet and allow that insulin level to go down, you can eat the same food and lose weight because you're allowing insulin to dissipate. But in the Atkins diet, you start out with a very, very low level of carbohydrates. They're saying generally under 20. I found that one piece of toast, white bread, is about 11 or 12, depending on how big that is. That was it. That was all. And I was a big pasta eater. I love pasta. Rice was okay. Potatoes were okay. But I didn't realize how difficult bread was to give up, pastries and things like that. That here I am. I'm living away from home, either in New York, San Francisco, or Stuttgart, Germany. And okay, fine, I can have this and this and this. But I found it very easy to stay less than 10 grams of carbs a day. And very, very rapidly, I lost weight. I mean, I lost probably 35, 40 pounds. I lost 7 inches in my gut. And I felt good. There was some drawbacks to it. Just real quickly, constipation became an issue because you weren't getting any fiber. And then the other one was that I could easily run an hour, hour and a half without any problem, 6, 8 miles or more, pretty consistently, almost a daily basis. And I had difficulty running 2 miles. And so, okay, I didn't have the glycogen stores in my muscles. I'm willing to give up my long distance running in order to have that nice trim waist and feel. And I did feel good. I felt great. And I started taking a lot of fiber, and I haven't stopped taking fiber now in almost 30 years, pretty close to that. So anytime I have a meal, it doesn't matter what it is. I had the fiber habit, and I just make sure that I take fiber. Just keeps you healthy and everything else. But in the real scheme of things, the diet is set up so that you are cutting carbs, cutting insulin. When you cut insulin, your body shifts to a ketogenic diet. You're now burning ketones, you're burning fat. And so in this fat burning phase, you can actually take and measure through your urine that you're actually burning ketones. So I bought the little pack of stuff, and yep, sure enough, I was in ketosis, and I was a happy camper, and everything was going very, very well. And so why should I have any concerns at all about it? I didn't know much at that point in time because I wasn't a researcher. I didn't know much about nutritional balance. Knew a little bit about sustainability, knew a little bit about health, but it tasted good. It tasted great. And it was fairly flexible. I could change out, chicken and beef and pork and ham and whatever I want. The one thing I did not do that was kind of mentioned in Atkins was the attention to detail of fruits and vegetables. And I'm going to talk about that here just in a little bit. But in reality, the entire diet was, to me, an easy lifestyle. It wasn't a diet. It was something I could do without any problem whatsoever. And I would find out if I was in say, Germany, and I took the weekend off, 3 or 4 day weekend, depending. I drive down to Rome or drive down to a couple other places down there. And I love Italian food. I'd go down there and I pig out on pasta and bread, wine, and I come back and I'd be 12 pounds heavier than I was when I went down. And 2 weeks later, I was back to my normal weight. So that kind of brought me into the attention that if I pig out for a period of time, I'm going to gain back water weight. So I would gain back 12 pounds, still feel good. I didn't try my long distance running, but the water weight was there. But if I went right back onto Atkins, it disappeared about a pound a day. And I didn't have a problem with that pound a day with regard to sleep, with regard to focus ability, cognitive function. Noticed nothing other than the fact that I couldn't go out and literally run probably at most 3 miles, but 2 miles I would really start feeling it. Whereas, I could easily run an hour, 6 miles or more and not feel a thing and just enjoy it anyway, regardless. The carbohydrates to me were something I could give up the rest of my life. There are no essential carbohydrates. But you listen to the follow the money kind of thing. How did we get the food pyramid? How did we get the rest of the stuff? We go back into the 1970s and we have this thing called ultra processed food. This is where the processing of food became the predominant way of eating. We had packaged this, canned this, bottled that, and they were high in calories, high in salt, high in sugar, high in fats, high in anything that made the food look good, taste good, and last a long time. And around 1976, 1978, the beginning of the American obesity epidemic started. And that is all based on, from a cause and effect perspective, the influx and availability of cheap, ultra processed foods. At that same time, you had that transition from using honey and sugar as a primary sugar sweetener to using high fructose corn syrup, cheaper than just using sucrose. However, fructose in and of itself is not a super healthy thing. In small amounts, an apple or banana, no big deal. But when you start pouring the massive amounts of sugar from fructose into your Coca-Cola and a half a dozen other food products that are produced out there because they need that sweetened taste to it, all of a sudden now you end up with a problem because your liver isn't used to processing that much fructose. It does consider it a poison. So it stops digestion and it does nothing but process that fructose until it's gone, and then it goes back to doing its normal job. And over a long period of time, you can actually develop a thing called a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease because your liver is a concentrated so much on getting rid of the fructose and other toxins that are in the body. Because when you start looking at ultra processed foods, you're also getting a host of hundreds of different toxins that again are processed by the liver. So the liver is being overworked, and as such, you don't realize it because it's not something that you see, feel, or taste or touch. It's happening inside. But with the Atkins diet, okay, fine. I take my fiber. I do this and that. It's easy. It's super easy. But in reality, what does it really do? Well, the taste part's fine. I can get it just about anywhere, no matter where I went in Europe. Okay, fine. I can't have bread today. I can live with that. But I found out that if I just had one big pasta meal every other week, one meal had no effect, did not do anything. So, okay, I can live with having one splurge every other week. And I didn't do that, but it was one thing that I could do. So if I got invited out to a party and there was a lot of, pies and cakes and other things there that it's interesting. The German desserts, they look fantastic. They look just scrumptious, but they don't have the same taste that the French desserts. The French desserts taste wonderful, but they don't look as good as the German ones. So it's kind of a trade-off. That looks great, but it just doesn't taste the same. It's like looking at a really nice tomato in the store. You hold it up, can't smell any tomato. It looks nice, but it just doesn't have that flavor, that smell, that aroma. And so I would basically just enjoy what I was doing. So as I'm getting through this entire program, I got into they talk about the induction phase and the balancing phase and the pre-maintenance and the maintenance and all this. But in reality, if you go on an Atkins diet or or ketogenic diet kind of thing, low carb, it takes about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks for your body to fully adjust that now you're living on a full cycle of nothing but ketones. So now you're burning fat. I started a show about 7 weeks ago on The Wise Ones talking about weight management, primarily concentrating on chemically what happens in the body and why do we have difficulty losing weight? What can you do with regard to actually adjusting things? And when you start having problems with balance of various nutrients and Atkins, along with keto, along with Mediterranean, along with almost any standard American diet, you're going to have problems with balance. Nutritional balance is an issue. And one of the diets that we're going to talk about, lifestyles, I call it the Walls Protocol diet, and it's going to be one of the ones down the road here. But that's the only one I know that has a really good nutritional balance, and there's a lot of benefits to it. But with regard to nutritional balance, if all I'm eating is protein and fats, very little veggies, very little fruit, I have a nutritional balance. But if and this wasn't really explicit in the Atkins diet, even the stuff I've studied here the last couple of days, it talks about having a little bit more of the fruits and vegetables, but they're talking about it from a bone health perspective, something we are going to go into detail about, but it's not something that they harp on. And there's, I think, a very good reason that we should pay attention to the fact that you really need those other fruits and vegetables, and you primarily need them for the nutritional balance. And when you're nutritionally balanced, then you start ending up getting hormonally balanced. And that is a big, big, big issue with regard to losing weight. Because if your insulin is present, you're not going to burn any fat. That's a fact. That's a chemical. Take it to the bank. If you have insulin, so you're making 4, 5, 6 meals a day, and most of it has carbs in it, you're not going to be able to burn fat because insulin prevents it. If you're stressed out, cortisol is going to cause your body to make insulin. It's not going to allow you to burn fat. So you have stress cortisol, you have that hormone, you have other things. And so there's probably a dozen individual hormones that regulate our appetite and the signals that we send back and forth between our brain and our gut and our fat molecules as to say, okay, I'm sated, I can easily eat everything. But that little communication between the brain and the gut, you're eating something, and then literally for about a quarter of a second, a half a second, there's this flash, and it says, okay, I'm happy. And if you ignore it, you're going to keep eating, and you're way past what you need to do. But if you obey that command, say, okay, push everything away, I don't need any more, that's really your level. And if you pay attention to that much food, it doesn't look like much, but the body's happy with it. And so in the Atkins diet, you're eating protein, you're eating fat, you don't have an appetite. If I'm eating pasta and rice and a half a dozen other things, my appetite comes back pretty quickly. But with regard to the Atkins, I didn't have an appetite. I could have a cheese omelet in the morning with bacon, and I wouldn't be hungry again until late at that night. And sometimes we eat because of habit. I'm going to lunch. Join me. Yeah, sure. Whatever it may happen to be. Or we're going down to the pub afterwards. And you grab something to eat en route. And so we eat out of habit, not out of hunger. But with Atkins, because I concentrated so much on fats and proteins, I developed a situation called acidosis. And acidosis is when your body's pH is less than 7.4 on the pH scale. Now, pH basically is a measurement of from 7 to 14. That's alkaline. That's high. Anything from 1 to 7 is acidic. The higher the number, the lower the number, the more alkaline, the more acidic it is. Well, if you are only drinking pure distilled water, that pH is 7. It's neutral. But our blood lives in a range of 7.35 to 7.45. That's the pH it wants to be in. And so when it's not in that range, below that range, it needs to balance itself out. So if I have let's say a 6.9 pH, which is easy to get when I'm eating carbohydrates or less, the body is consistently seeing a low acidosis level, and it's going to go in and grab molecules of calcium from the bloodstream, from your bones, put it into the bloodstream. Now your bloodstream's a happy camper again, and everything's fine. But that bloodstream has to keep that. So it's constantly pulling those calcium molecules out of your bones. And it's not because Atkins says I need the fruits and vegetables to get there, but it's a different mechanism entirely. When I look at how does calcium get into the bone, totally different than how it comes out of the bone. So I take a calcium molecule, let's say it's in a piece of spinach, for instance, leafy green vegetable, as opposed to a pill that most of the time it's a calcium carbonate, and that calcium carbonate molecule is very difficult to digest. But let's say I have a piece of green vegetable, has some calcium in it. I take it, and if I have enough magnesium levels in my body, which is needed for hundreds of different operations in the body, that calcium molecule is fairly easily absorbed into our stomach. It's one of those nutrients that, okay, it's there. As that calcium is leaving the stomach, if I have enough vitamin D3, it's going to go into the bloodstream. If not, it's going to go into the toilet. So I get that calcium molecule into my bloodstream, and it's only got two places to go to. One is to my bones, and the other one is to my heart valves and arteries. It's called plaque. And if I'm just putting calcium into my bloodstream without getting it to my bones, that's not a healthy situation. And that's partly why I'm guessing that Atkins took a bad rap, because they weren't really pushing the fruits and vegetables. Now, why is that important? Well, if I'm eating fruits and vegetables, the body takes those particular components and it becomes an alkalizer in the body. It actually makes your body overall, the environment in your body, greater than 7.45. So now there's adequate amounts of calcium in the blood, in your body, and if it's in your bones, everything's good. But what causes the calcium to go into your bones, and what causes it to go into your heart valves and arteries? Vitamin K2. Vitamin K2, you get K1 from your leafy green vegetables, but that's not the same thing. You need the K2. Now, the K2 is a monoquinone, and that K2 comes from organ meats, not something I'm in favor of, but it also comes from dairy and cheeses and things. So there's a little bit there. But I found that over time, I needed to supplement to get more vitamin K2 in my body so that I was not putting it in my heart valves and arteries. So over a period of time, I ended up with a fair amount of plaque, actually more than I should have. Plaque in my body. My heart actually closed what's called the left anterior descending artery. It's called the widowmaker. And it was 100% occluded, blocked. But I have what's called a DIY double bypass. My heart actually grew two brand new veins, one across the front, one across the back, down to the blockage, and took up all of the requirements of the heart to send blood to the rest of my body. I didn't know this at the time. I'm sure that Atkins was one of those things that did not help that situation. But when I had a catheterization, doctor says, well, you got a couple new veins there, and it looks like you do not need a stent. You do not need anything. Everything's fine. But in retrospect, I'm thinking to myself, here I was on Atkins for about 6 years. I was in severe acidosis. I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't even know I was there until I had a bone density test. I'm out of the Navy. I'm retired. And okay, I've been a weightlifter forever, a runner forever, never, never. I said, I got to have super strong bones. I get in there, I take a bone density test, and I'm osteopenia. What could cause that? So this is before my researcher days. I listened to something on the radio, and they talked about the process I just talked about with regard to calcium, magnesium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2. That gets it to the bones, but the pH of the body is what extracts the calcium from the bones. So I have to get it to the bones. I have to keep it coming to the bones, but I also have to keep my body in an alkaline condition to keep calcium in my bones. So as I get older, I don't have a situation where I end up with brittle bone, osteoporosis, or some other issues that are there. So with the Atkins diet, I think it's a great way of going. It's a good way of losing inches. It's a good way of losing pounds, but you have to temper it with a lot of green leafy vegetables, a lot of sulfur-laden vegetables, because you need that sulfur to repair the muscles at night. And you need the fruits and vegetables for that, just a little amount. I mean, blueberries and raspberries and strawberries, they don't have very many carbs in it, but it gives you that little taste of sugar, that that you kind of crave sometimes. And so from an Atkins perspective, if you moderate the Atkins with the leafy green vegetables and the other, now you're going to find a situation that really isn't manageable and healthy. And that's a big deal because you have your appetite suppressant, you have the ability to burn fat, you have the ability to maintain it without difficulty, but you also balance the nutrients and you can balance your hormones and keep your body in a healthier condition. Dr. JACALYN, have you ever tried Atkins? I think you're.
There we go. I have tried Atkins, and I really liked the food choices that they had offered. I did feel a little sluggish, though.
You have the same thing I understand with ketogenic diets. There's a period of time, maybe up to 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, that the body has a difficult time switching modes. But once you get into that, I've talked to several people who've lived on ketogenic diets for years, and they said, yeah, I can run 10 miles without a problem. But their body has adapted to burning the fat as the primary as opposed to glycogen from our muscles. I never achieved that. I went back out several times, and I'd get to 4 or 5 miles, and I was just, out of gas. And it's okay, fine. Maybe I just need to do a little bit more, but train the body accordingly. But from an Atkins perspective, I look at it, okay, it's not nutritionally balanced, but it can be. It's sustainable, I think, very much so, just like the Mediterranean diet we talked about. And just, the standard American diet is sustainable. It's just not healthy. A taste perspective, for me, I like fat. I like, bacon and butter and those kind of meats. You give me that stuff and I'm happy. You sprinkle kale and spinach on top. I'm not so healthy. I'm not a cruciferous vegetable person at all. But I have learned with the Wall's protocol that I can eat 7 or 8 different kinds of leafy green vegetables and enjoy them. But I can't do it from a cooked or sauteed perspective. I have to have them raw. And from that perspective,
I like it raw too.
I can easily get my leafy green vegetables. I don't do the cruciferous because I just don't like that taste. But the onions and mushrooms and garlic and some other things, I can, in fact, get my sulfur-laden vegetables there. So from a perspective of trying to get my nutrient balance, I can actually take Atkins and very carefully staying within the realm of, for me, easily 10 grams of carbs a day or less. I can easily have my raspberries, have strawberries, have whatever I want that gets me up to that 8, 10. I don't need bread. I don't need rice. I don't need pasta. I don't need potatoes. I don't need anything with carbs, but I can get my carbs, from spinach. There's a little bit in there. I can get it from blueberries. There's a little bit. And again, moderation. I don't need a bowl and a half of strawberries. I tried that at one point in time. That part of my life didn't work either because I was overloading on one thing from another. But from an acidosis perspective of being able to keep my blood pH above 7.4, get the nutrients I need, balance my hormones, and keep a good lifestyle, I thought that Atkins was very, very good with regard to that.
It sounds like it. I know the other thing I experienced aside from being tired was I felt my skin was greasy. I always felt like I had a sheen, I guess, from eating those types of foods, because they're not foods that I typically would eat. I'm not a meat eater, and I'm not eating eggs per se. So it just, I don't know. I felt like it was a good plan because I lost weight, but yet I felt sluggish and greasy.
Interesting. I think that if you have some health issues, diabetes, I'm not going to talk about obese, but I think if you're under a doctor's care and you say, I want to do this, the doctor will work with you. I think their primary concern is going to be, I'm giving you too many saturated fats. Well, there's a lot of studies out there that says it's not the saturated fat that's there. That's why there was such a huge outcry when we switched over from red palm oil and coconut oil to the trans fats and that era, because they're saying it's a saturated fat. Well, it's a plant fat. It's not a meat fat. It's not animal fat. And at some time, again, these are very interesting studies, depending on how you want to look at that word interesting, that the studies show that there's really not as much danger as you think. In fact, some of them say it's a total myth. But I think you do need some moderation. When I go on and I talk about the Wall's protocol diet, I say change your protein every 48 hours. Do not keep, if you're eating chicken every single day of the week, that's probably not as healthy as it can be. Switch out to salmon, switch out to lamb, switch out to beef, switch out to something else, because those other proteins make your body go out and find the molecules, amino acids that it needs, and you end up getting a different mixture. From a vegetable perspective, I can sit there and have celery and uh, green onions and kale and spinach and 3 or 4 other ones that I can chop up, put into my salad. And okay, today I'm not going to have that because I don't have it. Parsley, I love parsley, and there's a lot of good reasons for it. But I can pick and choose what I want and have a little variety. But I'm not overdoing everything by having just greens for my meal, because I mix in some berries, I mix in some mushrooms, I mix in some onions, so I get my sulfur, I mix in some protein, and those kinds of things. And if I saute my onions and mushrooms in coconut oil, then I'm getting a healthy fat. So I can balance a lot of the nutrients that I need, and it's about 30 some nutrients that a body needs on a daily basis, that makes our bodies operate in a healthy mode that can help clean up things. So I talked about vitamin K2. The Japanese use vitamin K2 to help with osteoporosis because it puts the calcium back in the blood. But they also use it as a method of being able to extract the plaque, the calcium buildup in our heart valves and arteries. And if you take a very high dose vitamin K2 that has a monoquinone 4, that's the one that's the heavy duty actor. It's a fast acting one that gets in there and does its job. The MK7, monoquinone 7, is kind of a longer lasting. It's around for 24 hours or whatever. So, but that is a potential option to talk to your doctor about, saying, hey, got some cardiovascular issues. Here's some studies that I've pulled off of Google. I'd like you to look at it and say, I'd like to go on this kind of protocol so that I can start cleaning my heart up. And I think 9 times out of 10, doctor looks at the studies and say, okay, well, let's go ahead and follow your suggestion, because most of the time doctors are willing to work with you. I mean, I've never had a doctor say, you can't do that. If I give them a reason why I want to do something, okay, fine, we'll check you back in 3 months and see how it is. And most doctors do not know anything about nutrition, at least to an intimate level. They end up with some training on it, but it's not something they stick up with. I can remember almost going to fisticuffs with my wife's oncologist because he wanted her to take more calcium to build her bones up, because the medicine that she was taking as part of her drug therapy for her breast cancer was he just take more calcium. I said, no, you don't understand. He said, well, I'm a blood doctor, I'm a cancer doctor, I know these things. I said, no, you don't, doctor. And that we didn't talk to each other for about two months, I think, because he didn't understand the chemistry of how you get calcium into the bone. And that was his own deal. He just, just take calcium and it goes there. No, it's not the way it works. But it wasn't something he studied, but it was something that I studied, wrote about, talked about, and stuff. So, but anyway, from a health perspective, to me, I give Atkins 2 thumbs up. But I have to say that it can be abused easily, and it can be abused if you're not reasonably healthy going into it. So if you're diabetes, if you have kidney issues, if you have some heart issues, definitely talk to your doctor first. Say, this is what I want to do. Maybe you cut your carbs back to 50 grams a day, not 20. Maybe you monitor yourself for a little while. Maybe you can live on 30 grams a day and lose 2 pounds a week or something. It's something that's doable, but do not give up the leafy green vegetables and the other things that are needed to keep the balance of nutrients in the body. Now, they also talk about, besides bone health, they talk about muscle mass and some other things. But I think if you're eating the protein and you're doing some level of exercise, muscle mass is not an issue. They talk about gastrointestinal issues. Well, yeah, if you're not having the fiber, you're definitely going to have some gastrointestinal issues. But the fiber does balance a lot of things out. So if you're trying to start this thing anew and you want to ensure that you have a pretty good level of gut health, maybe you might want to start on a probiotic, one a day for a week, and then part of what you're eating with regard to your spinach and other things are basically your prebiotics that provide that level of nutrient fertilizer, if you want to look at it that way, for your probiotic activity in your body, in your gut. But for me, I think Atkins is a definitely 2 thumbs up. I think it's sustainable. I think it's taste worthy, but I think it has issues that most books don't talk about. That's the acidosis. It's the need to keep your body's pH, which is easy to test. Go on Google and order pH strips. They come in a variety of ways, but touch it to your tongue. You look at the color, you look at the label. Oh, okay, 7.4. I'm fine. But if I'm consistently at 6.6, I'm not getting enough fruits and vegetables. That's the adjustment you need to make. So when you start something like this, be smart. If you know that the diet has a tendency to put you into acidosis because of your food choices, change your choices so that you are actually now improving your ability to keep your blood pH where it needs to be. And that's the only thing that I would really say is an issue. Beyond that, I think everything else is there pretty well. I'm looking at my little notes here. I don't see anything else that I have an issue with. A standard American diet has a lot of issues, primarily because of the carbs. But from a Atkins perspective, I think it's far superior to the standard American diet. I would put it on the same level as a Mediterranean diet. But again, from Mediterranean diet, you start that way and you live your life that whole way. You're not taking 20, 30, 40 years of your life on a standard American diet that's already been ingrained in your DNA, so to speak. And now you're switching over and expect 6 months or a year or 2 years to be able to have the full benefits of something that somebody else has lived a lifetime on because that's their lifestyle. But from a way to lose weight, absolutely. Very, very good way. Keep the fruits and vegetables in the system. Get your pH paper. Talk to your doctor in advance because if you have any health issues at all, don't take a chance. It's not worth it. You want to be able to have a nice, healthy lifestyle, but you like to be able to look thin and trim. But looking thin and trim doesn't mean that you've gotten rid of your visceral fat around your organs. It doesn't mean that you're healthy with regard to high blood pressure or half a dozen other things. But if part of our program here is food and our emotions, I think that the food choices on Atkins provides us with a lot of good options. We feel better, we look better. That's going to help our life a lot. Our emotions are going to be there. But whether I'm overweight or underweight and I'm stressed out, it's not going to help me. But I think this is a good diet. I really do. I would not have any problem recommending it, with the caveat: continually test your pH so you know that when you get to that right balance of fruits, vegetables, fats, and proteins, and what carbohydrates you can eat every 2 weeks and enjoy, but don't eat them more than one meal. If you want to go out and have Mexican food and just pig out it, or Italian or Chinese, pig out one meal. That's it. No mas. And enjoy life. That's what I think, Dr. JACALYN. Your thoughts?
Thank you, Red. No, I'm just going by you. You're the expert, and I would defer to you and what you're thinking. And I shared my thoughts. I thought it was a good diet. I just mentioned the 2 things that came up for me, which doesn't mean that'll come up for anyone else. So thank you for all the research and time you put into it. I really do appreciate it. We have to close out for our next show, but Red, you have other shows coming up today. How can people reach out to you, and who is it that you can help?
I'm a writer, researcher, speaker, publisher. I help people from a health perspective by speaking. I help people from a book perspective of helping them get their books started, publishing their books for them. Those are things that I can help you with. My 2 primary methods of contact are phone number 281-687-1188, 281-687-1188. Just call me on the phone. I'm not great at texting. Don't respond quickly to text, but I respond pretty quickly to a voicemail or just somebody calling on the phone. Probably the best way to reach me is my email, red.olaughlin@gmail.com. So it's red, like the color, RED, .olaughlin, OLAUGHLIN. So REDOLAUGHLIN, red.olaughlin gmail.com. And just send me an email, and we'll get in touch, do a Zoom meeting, do a phone call, whatever it was, and kind of figure out how can I help you, whatever it may be, and we go from there. But coming up shortly here on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, probably in about a little over 2 hours, we have The Wise Ones. It's a show where we have a chance for our guests to share a lot of value, a lot of wisdom, a lot of things that can help our audience. And then immediately following that show, we're starting a brand new series on Talking Heads today. We just finished up on weight management. We're going to go a little bit into pain management, pain control. What causes pain? What can you do about it? So I'm looking at a potential 6-part series on pain. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on Talking Heads. So with that, Dr. JACALYN, I'm going to bid adieu and say adios, have fun, enjoy the world, our life, and I'm going to catch you all in a couple hours.
All right. Thank you, Red. Bye for now. And please do reach out to Red. That's why he's here. He's here to provide education, hope, and inspiration, and he would like to hear from you. If you would like to join our team, we would love to speak with you. You can contact me directly at drjacalyn@usaglobaltv.com, or you can go to our website, usaglobaltv.com. If you're interested in having your own show, or you're interested in being one of our panelists on one of our other shows, or if you're an expert presenter, you've got 5 years experience in your field and you're considered to be an expert, please do reach out and see if this would be a good fit for us and for you. Our next show is coming up. It is the Corner Bookstore, and joining me will be Diane Floyd-Boehm. Let's take a look at Diane's testimonial about her experience here at USA Global TV and Radio, and also take a look at her sponsorship. Bye for now. Stay tuned. Watch what Diane has to say. Thank you.
Hello, I'm children's author Diane Floyd-Boehm, and I am co-host for several of the USA Global TV and radio shows. I joined because of the purpose of the USA Global TV and radio. They provide content for the viewers and listeners, an opportunity for people around the world to have their own show or even be a guest on an existing show. We truly believe in helping others get their positive message out to the world. We also have the opportunity for the listeners. You can watch on several platforms, and on YouTube, you can ask questions and even give a comment. We absolutely love it. I love being part of the USA Global TV and Radio because I love positive messages, and who doesn't? And we need more of that in the world. We are a family, and we hope you will join us and become part of the family too.